Hey, welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broaden our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and as usual, I'm here with Michael.
Hey, everybody.
And Jason.
Hey, man. It kind of sounded like you said burdening ourselves one movie at a time.
It really did. I was like, well, I mean...
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah, is there a difference? Is there a difference, really?
We went through the Indian segment, so we definitely burdened ourselves with some of those.
And, speaking of our weird penchant for, just weird, synchronicity things that happen, we did that. And now Mondo Macabro is putting out a Bollywood horror box set.
We made it happen. Mm-hmm. I think we take full credit for that.
Yeah, I love it.
I think that we are influencing the Illuminati.
I don't know about that.
And they're like, oh, these guys, these three white dudes in a basement really know what's going on in the world.
I don't think
they
we're
have
actually
their finger on the pulse of the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
I don't think we're actually that trendy. We're just randomly lucky with guesses.
I got my finger on something, I can tell you that.
Ew.
So we finished our crazy October horror odyssey.
Ooh.
We delved into some of the darkest films you can get into.
It was spooky.
Michael set out. You took care of some stuff. That's cool.
He's too scared.
I was too scared of him.
Yeah.
Couldn't handle
So
it.
I wanted to cool us down with something fun to close the year out. We went with musicals. Today we're talking about Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which was your pick, Michael.
It's mine, yep.
Super excited. I had never seen it before, so I'd always known about it and never had the chance to experience
I
it.
hadn't seen it either.
And I found out because our friend Adam was in town, good friend of the podcast, was in town, and he's been going back and listening to the back catalog as he's traveling. And apparently I talked about bringing this...
I know you've mentioned it
when we did specifically the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T.
Underrated movie that everyone needs to watch right now.
I had talked about watching this one, so I'm glad we got around to it.
Killer. Well, we're going to get into all of that as per usual, but first, we got a shout out. We're going to talk about what we've been watching, all that fun stuff.
All right.
So my shout out is just to mention again, Unsung Horrors. They did their Horror Gives Back challenge in October. Basically, the idea is you watched a movie a day, you pledge some amount of money to a charity. The one they picked to do was the Best Friends Animal...
Good cause.
Man, I wish I could remember the whole name, but there you go. Best Friends Animal charity thing. They advocate for, helping convert shelters over to no-kill, rescuing animals, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. I took part of it in it. I didn't get to do their curated list of choices. Because I had that vacation, it was impossible to hit some of the entries, but I did watch a film a day, threw in with their thing. I think they doubled their goal. So
nice.
Cool. Nice.
I think they were trying to do $666 to be metal like that. They smashed through it. That's awesome. I even, on my phone, got a call from the Best Friends people thanking me for my donation. So that was...
Very cool.
Felt good, super nice. I'm glad that went well for them. I hope they keep doing it every year. Look for it when it rolls back around and join in yourself and help a good cause and celebrate horror in October.
Yeah.
And I think usually they do an episode that they kind of recap their picks they watched all month. So look forward to that.
That'd be fun.
If it's out before this episode, I'll definitely throw it in the show notes.
Very cool.
All right. Well, what have you guys been watching in our post-October world?
Michael, you can go first.
Yeah, sure. I watched a pretty fun one that came out in 2021, kind of the height of the pandemic, lockdowns and stuff, and everybody talked about it, but it was The Mitchells versus the Machines, the animated film on Netflix.
I heard of that, yeah.
I haven't heard of that at all.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I really haven't.
Really?
It's kind of this quirky animation style that's not at all Disney-ish, kind of more, I don't know, kind of leans more of the Despicable Me style, but...
Yeah, the CG-ish, not DreamWorks-esque,
but it was really
quite.
Surprisingly very hyper-stylized, and there was a lot of stuff that kind of reminded me of anime in it.
Oh.
Just the way they...
Do go on.
There was one scene that was very Trigger. Trigger Studios style, where I was having flashbacks of Promare and then
So you didn't have a stroke
and
or
hey,
anything.
it's not a movie, but speaking of Netflix and Trigger, there is Cyberpunk Edge Runners out there.
I've been
now.
watching it.
Ooh, it's so good.
It is good.
I haven't watched it yet.
Mitchell versus the Machines, though, is about basically a cell phone AI, kind of like the Apple Siri type thing, that grows sentient and takes over all humanity and is basically trying to enslave humanity.
So it's a documentary.
Yeah, exactly. And it's down, and the only family that escapes is this super weird, kind of dysfunctional family known as the Mitchells. It's really just kind of this quirky story about how they're kind of coming together and realizing that it's okay to be the weird family. Like, they don't have to be anything they're not. And there's really good father-daughter kind of like understanding your strange child kind of a thing. This might trigger some people, but the lead female is a queer female, queer character, and it's not in your face.
If that triggers you, I feel bad for you.
Why are you listening to our podcast?
That was, but literally, I remember when that came out, like a bunch of like super conservative Christian people were being like, I don't know, I don't think that should be in a PG rated kids movie, and I'm like, just go fuck yourself.
Do they look at everything else that's on Netflix?
I don't know. Like, I think that they would just solve the world's problem if they actually just went and fucked themselves. And then
well, that would be fine. Michael, that would be a sin. So
I don't know. I thought it was really fun. Super. It's really kind of sappy in a lot of ways, but it has so many adult references. There's actually, it's Five Fingers of Death, right? Where before he gets ready to attack, it does the They do that in the movie.
Nice.
When the mom gets ready to go crazy and start killing robots, she's like, it flashes like close shot to her eyes, and it does that, and she actually rips a robot's heart out. And I was like, they just fucking did Five Fingers of Death in a PG kids movie. I don't know. I look for things like this because it's something I can watch with my son, and I know that's a lot of the reason people watch certain like cartoons and stuff, because they're more suited for adults to be able to have fun and watch with their kids.
So you're not worried about the gay character somehow causing your child to become a delinquent or something?
No, I'm really not.
That's not a concern? Okay.
I did notice, though, like, some of the comedy really felt familiar, and I looked it up, and it's the guys who made it were writers on Gravity Falls.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay.
So
well,
I'm more interested now.
You should have led with that.
I know, I should have led with that. But no, like, a lot of the comedy was super dry, that Gravity Falls humor, and I looked them up, and, like, they were on for like all 3 seasons of Gravity Falls. So.
Nice.
Okay, well that just went up on mine to watch list.
That made it on my watch list now.
Yeah, it's silly. It's only like an hour. It's maybe like a little under 2 hours. It's not a big commitment. It's silly, fun, goofy. I watched a bunch of stuff, but I will give a quick plug to Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
How was that?
Really fucking fun. It's exactly what you expect from a Weird Al created movie. And the guy who gave 2 stars on IMDb because there were no actual Weird Als.
Now, is it better than UHF?
No, because I watched UHF.
I love UHF.
I watched UHF immediately after watching it, to be honest with you. I put it on immediately.
Where's our like Blu-ray restored version of that? Does it have one? I don't know.
It's streaming for free on like every platform.
I want my Criterion spine.
It should be. It's great.
I'm still laughing at Conan the Librarian. Every time I think of that or see it, it cracks me up.
No, Weird, it's free. It's on the Roku channel, so if you have a Roku device or something, I mean, it's just stupid and silly and very Weird Al.
Cool.
So I can recommend it if you like Weird Al.
Nice.
If you don't listen to us. We don't want you listening to us.
I mean, Piper was like, I hate Weird Al. I'm not watching that movie. I know.
Well, hey, she doesn't listen to us anyways. So.
She doesn't? No, she doesn't listen to us.
All right, Jason, do you want me to go next?
Sure, why don't you go next?
I suspect you may have something cool, so.
Well, maybe.
So I got to back up to some of my October watches, because I did say I was going to do that in our bonus episode. Backing up to that Comfort Films episode, it's done really well, and I've been surprised by how quick it picked up listeners and stuff.
It's because I was back.
You are back, that's one thing. It is a reminder that sometimes we should take those times to do like lighter episodes where we talk about a bunch of films.
Yeah, totally.
That was fun.
I'm down for that, yeah.
So one of my delights in October that I left to talk about, I love Koji Shiraishi. Mm-hmm. He's in a lot of stuff that's never been brought to English before. And over, I guess, like the early part of the year, a bunch of his films got subtitled that had never been subtitled before. And they're all part of an ongoing series called Senritsu Kaiki File Kowasugi.
Sounds vaguely dirty.
And basically the whole premise, it's a found footage thing. I think they're direct-to-video ones that he's made. And it's the same hook of a lot of his movies, where it's like a production crew, there's a cameraman, which Shiraishi plays himself, there's a director, and then like an assistant who's kind of like the lady that will interview people and stuff. And they're investigating the supernatural. And that's the general hook of all of them. And film to film, each film is like one file in their collection of investigating, and they're each about an hour long, and each one focuses on a very popular either like yokai or Japanese ghost urban legend or a thing like that. Like the first one is the Slit-Mouthed Woman, which that itself has its own horror films that have been made before, like Carved. There's that. They do one that's just about a general like Onryo, like the typical long hair ghost. They do one that's about a kappa, the weird like
Water creature or
amphibious
something?
water demon creature thing. They do one about Hanako-san of the toilet, which is the like ghost girl that lives in like a school bathroom toilet.
Morning Myrtle, yes.
Yeah, a total rip of that. As if J.K. Rowling had that many original ideas
Ooh,
kicking around
shots
in there.
fired.
But yeah, so each one, it's this group, right? And it's they're led by Kudo, the director, and he's this very aggressive sort of person that has like no qualms with like getting in the face of people, slapping them around. He just wants to find the truth.
Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah. Like I said, Shiraishi plays Toshiro, who's the cameraman. He's mostly behind the camera the whole time. It's his usual like passive cameraman persona that he does. And then Miho Ichikawa is the assistant director, and she kind of leads all the interacting with people. And it's interesting because film to film, I watched all 7. There's like 7 that's the original series, and then he's done a new one. All the original 7 have been subtitled. They're not out there to buy anywhere. This is one of those you got to step into the gray area of downloading them, downloading the subtitles, all that stuff. If you dig found footage, they're a must-watch. If you dig Shiraishi, they're a must-watch. Film to film, there's a narrative that starts to come together where like there's overarching themes from film to film and they all connect and it builds into this bigger story where there's some kind of like supernatural other world that's starting to breach reality, and it gets very cosmic, very Lovecraftian, very weird. And they also do a neat thing where each one too, like it's never on the face of like what you think it's going to be. Like the first one, the Slit-Mouthed Woman one, you think it's just like that story, like they're just going to investigate that. And then it gets into this weird stuff where there's like, maybe it's not actually that, maybe it's this woman that's gone missing that practiced magic and she starts cursing people. And then they go down a path investigating that. The standard ghost one, it gets into all this stuff about like aliens and UFOs and like other dimensional stuff. The Hanako-san one gets into like time travel, and they actually have this thing where like someone dies and they start to try to use the time travel thing they've discovered to like loop back around and save that person, but also not mess anything else up. So there's always just a clever twist to each one where it's just not a straightforward J-horror thing. And by the end, it's complete insanity. It goes like multi-dimensional, and I don't want to spoil too much, but just to throw it in there, if you're like a devotee of his films, in the final film, Enno shows up from a cult.
Oh, cool.
The crazy guy that they follow in that film. He shows up from like the other dimension that they've gone to at the end of a cult, and he recognizes Toshiro as Shiraishi, but it's not because it's a different universe. And it's not Shiraishi as Shiraishi, it's Shiraishi as Toshiro. But he acknowledges that they're like different universe counterparts, and they actually kind of link those things together, and he tries to like help them out of like respect for, in the occult universe, Shiraishi like stuck with him to the end. So it gets very weird, very crazy, very meta on like the films that he has made.
So it helps if you're well versed with those movies.
It's a bigger payoff if you know his other films, but I think you could still enjoy them just outright.
Nice.
So yeah, love Shiraishi. Anything he does, they were great. I had a delight watching them. Each one's an hour, so they're quick to get through. Just good old found footage fun.
Have you ever thought it might be worth just to like go on Fiverr and pay somebody to translate movies for you?
I have thought about that. But translations are, pretty technical. There's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you find somebody who's pretty good, like maybe they could just sit and watch it with you. Maybe you should just be friends with somebody.
Be friends with somebody.
I do need friends.
I think you need a friend, yeah.
Well,
preferably if they speak Japanese, that would be great.
I'm accepting applications.
if you speak Japanese, I'm accepting applications for friends. Write us in, genreexposure@gmail.com.
Make sure they actually speak it.
You should do like do an interview for Japanese women to find a companion. See how that goes.
Anyways, Jason, what have you been watching?
I checked out a movie called The Untamed from 2016.
Okay.
It is a Spanish film.
About Jason's body hair.
No, nothing that scary. But the very vague synopsis is a couple in a troubled marriage locate a meteorite, initiating an encounter with a mysterious creature. Okay, we don't actually see any of that. You have to infer that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Their lives are turned upside down by the discovery of the creature, which is a source of both pleasure and destruction. So really, it's kind of a psychosexual thriller? Drama?
Okay.
A driller.
It's a driller.
Uh-oh.
It's very well done. It's well directed and well acted. It's very kind of vague and it doesn't over-explain things.
Is it more or less sensual than Hellraiser 2022?
I would say more.
Okay.
I would say more. Because that wasn't sensual at all. But for any, hentai fans out there, there is a live action sequence of this tentacled alien creature doing its thing.
Or if you're a Possession fan and you've never experienced hentai.
Or if you're a Possession fan, exactly. But it's really not as what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as explicit as it sounds by any means.
It's no Angel of Darkness. Don't look that up.
Right,
I don't know what that is either. I don't know why I brought it up.
Well,
just
you're
now.
probably going to have to show note it now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if there'll be a video I can link to, but we'll see.
I've actually seen those.
Of course you have. Of course you have.
But I think it's worth watching. It's on Shudder. It's a slow burn, and it's very much more of a character drama than anything. Mm-hmm. It's almost annoyingly vague in parts, though. But, I mean, I guess you can fill in things with your imagination.
Like Jason's body hair. Sorry. Everything you kept saying was just like piling on that joke. I couldn't.
I'm glad you're back, Michael.
I missed you. Jackass.
Why say such jackassy things over there?
But yeah, check it out if you're into that sort of thing.
Cool. I'll give it a watch. All right, today we are talking about musicals, and we're kicking it all off with Michael's pick, Hedwig and the Angry Inch from 2001.
All right.
Now, normally when we start a block, we do a whole big breakdown about the genre and an overview if we've never come to this before.
But we already did that.
We did already do this, so if you're newer to the show and you've not gone through the back catalog, hop back to the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, and you can hear us kind of do a whirlwind overview of musicals as a genre. We already did it once. I don't want to try to outdo it, or we repeat a lot of information. It's just a waste of time.
Yes, plus Dr. T is the mic drop of musicals, so, you could start and stop there if you want to.
If you've never seen it, it's worth investigating. You can listen to us and decide what you want to do.
It's like the YouTube thing where they're like, you can follow that link here in the corner of your screen. You can just click on the link that Dustin will probably just include into the show notes. It's a lot easier.
So this was your pick, Michael. Where do you want to start on this?
Okay, so I was completely unaware of this film until I met my wife. We met in 2009. Yes.
You want to get that right? Oh, she doesn't.
She doesn't
matter.
I can say anything I want.
Just got to be in continuity with yourself going forward.
But this was a movie that she actually always absolutely loved, and she was like, yeah, when you first meet somebody, you have that movie that you just want to
share your favorite things. Yeah.
And this was one that she absolutely loved, and when I watched it with her, I was like, oh. Damn. Okay. It's a lot to take in at first.
Yeah.
But I found the music really grew on me over time. Just the whole story, I find myself thinking about it, quoting things from it randomly. So I realized, okay, it definitely stuck with me. It came back to me again a couple of years ago because Criterion put out an issue of it, which that's what I watched it on. Looked great.
Nice. So you've got the blue.
I've got the blue. Yeah, I do. Nice. I do.
And there's a Barnes & Noble Criterion sale this month, so I might have the blue too before we're done.
Cool.
Well, I guess, should we just start kind of walking through it?
It is a musical, but what genre would this be?
This one's, I think, technically considered like a rock musical, but kind of a Broadway musical as well.
So what I've got is a rock musical / comedy drama.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. The story itself, when there's not songs, is very dramedy.
And I thought also maybe we should define what musical style is this in. Because, of course, every musical kind of has its own motif.
I mean, how would you describe it? I would say like
I-
rock musical. Rock.
Yeah, I mean, I think rock would be the go-to term. There's a little bit of punk in there.
So there's a lot of punk in there. I think it's very like glam rock would be the term you would use.
Yeah, there's a lot
Stuff
of like David Bowie
yeah.
type influence. Yeah,
Which is referenced multiple times in the film. So
yeah.
yeah, so
So,
I guess
I think we can just dive into the film and let stuff pop out as we go.
directed by John Cameron Mitchell, who initially wrote the story for Hedwig, and then eventually met up with Stephen Trask, who was in a band at the time and was basically looking to kind of start writing something different, doing something different. Mitchell kind of said, hey, check out this story. Stephen Trask was like, oh my God, we need to do this now. And so that's kind of how the musical itself came about.
You know, I think it's interesting because when I was researching this, I saw that they kind of had the Hedwig character first before anything.
Yeah.
And they would actually kind of do these like drag performance shows where he would dress up as Hedwig and they would play as the band and then he would do like the banter between songs like you see in the film.
Yeah. There's a documentary on the Blu-ray about the making of just Hedwig, not the film, but like the creation of Hedwig.
Cool.
And there's this crazy bar called the Squeeze Box that was just like this drag bar that looked so fucking wild. Like this bar looked like the place you would want to be. It just looked absolutely wild. And that's where he started debuting the Hedwig character. Because Stephen Trask was doing like a residency there as like a musician playing at the Squeeze Box and doing all this stuff. And yeah, some of the images, the videos they show of that place, you're just like, holy shit, I want to be a fly on the wall here.
Okay, that's another plus for getting the blue.
Yeah, it's a full-length documentary too, like an hour and a half.
Nice. Yeah, Criterion always does you good.
I didn't get to finish it. It was really, really in depth and thorough.
Killer.
And of course, he plays Hedwig as well.
Yes,
directing it and writing it.
Yes, directing, writing, starring.
He actually sang,
Which is always
songs,
impressive too, to do that much.
So I guess the film basically starts out. We kind of learn who Hedwig is.
Right, they're in a performance, right?
Right.
Right out of the gate.
at a restaurant of some sort.
It's called the Bilgewater.
Yeah.
And they play it. Every gig is at a Bilgewater in a different town.
And I love that premise.
They're playing to completely uninterested people. Well, there's a couple of groupies out there. That's true.
But the Bilgewater is like this. It kind of looks like a fucking Red Lobster type place.
Also, the fans are heads.
Heads.
And they have like, what would you? It's almost like the sports arena kind of like big hats, foam hats.
Yeah, of Hedwig's wig.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. The opening song is a super cool track, Tear Me Down.
It immediately gives you like the vibe,
Yeah.
the tone of the music and everything.
And Tear Me Down is just like straight up punk rock, glam rock style. But basically it's telling you kind of the story of Hedwig's early life in a song. You know, talking about Hedwig is born in West Germany.
As Hansel.
As Hansel, yes. During the time of the divide.
East Germany.
Was he East Germany?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Got him backwards, yeah.
He was on the crappy side.
Yeah. Corny side.
And basically how his life is very kind of sheltered. He is the son of a U.S. serviceman. I forget what his rank was. I don't really think it matters.
His rank was asshole.
Yeah.
Because it's more than implied that his father was...
Yeah, sexually
Yes.
abusing him, yes. And his mother is a German woman. Her name is Hedwig. His mother's name is Hedwig.
It's very devoted to certain ideologies.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. She seemed a little pro-Hitler.
Yeah.
So one of the funniest early flashbacks, because you were talking about how this film is so quotable. Hansel's reading the Bible, and she tells him to stop, and he's like, "Oh, this Jesus guy does some like interesting stuff." And then she's like, "Never speak his name to me again in this house." And he says, "But Mom, he died for our sins."
So did Hitler.
Yeah. And you're just like, "Wait, what?"
The fuck? Showing.
But it's got a very snappy tone to a lot of the comedy, which I liked.
Hansel's early life is very... He's like always interested in what's going on the other side. I think that's probably just about any
It's kind of American music, American culture is like his escapism.
Yeah, like
things.
it talks about how he spent most of his time listening to the GI radio, which is a fucking hilarious scene of young Hansel like just dancing full out on his bed.
That
just,
kid
like,
is awesome. That kid's got some moves.
just
He
going
is
absolute
rocking it.
batshit, and it's extended scene, and his mom's just standing in the doorway staring at him. It's so funny. But we learn that Hansel is interested in music, starts to want to learn to sing, but his mom won't let him sing in the apartment because it's so small, so she makes him sing in the oven.
Yep.
Which he is like decked out to
It's
look
like a little bedroom.
Yeah. Anybody just sleeps on the oven door with his head in the oven.
And it's funny because it is sad, but at the same time, like, he's so into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just made it work.
You get some great, stuff, basically just talking about the influences and everything like that. But it's really setting up Hansel's life and how he sort of becomes Hedwig later.
Now, also at this time, we also get some sort of the general setup of like their tour that they're on.
Right.
And we learn that they're trailing a very famous musician,
Tommy Gnosis.
Yeah. He's super famous. He's got the total like 90s Nine Inch Nails look going on.
Yeah.
And Hedwig maintains that he has stolen songs. And there's a pending lawsuit.
But their tour follows, it just plays at Bilgewater's and one other fair that you see, which is fucking hilarious. But it just plays at Bilgewater's, which are next to the venues that Tommy Gnosis is playing. And there's, I think it's the opening scene, right? Where he opens he's playing next door.
Yeah.
And Hedwig opens the door to the restaurant. And you just hear, you hear the same song they just played, like blaring through from Tommy Gnosis' band.
Which is interesting because I looked up a little bit about how the actual like stage musical set up. And it is presented as like you're at a Bilgewater and it is just one show.
Right.
And they have a stage door set up that is like the backstage of where they're performing. And they do moments where Hedwig will open the door and you'll hear Tommy's stuff playing. And they make it seem like it's just across the street or something.
And the performances are great. I mean, it has to be said that John Cameron Mitchell nails it. He's awesome in this role.
So
there's so much energy and personality.
And the majority of the tracks that are sung in the film are sung live.
That's cool. That's very unusual.
So
I took down a note about that because it impressed me. So like normally when you do a musical, the standard kind of like if we're going to do one and you're going to follow all the general guidelines, you only like partly film like them doing the singing to make the shots and then you record it later. And Mitchell didn't want to lip sync the lines, so they just played it live on the set and sang, and then they just kind of like mixed everything up later
That's awesome.
after the fact.
Well, and one of the, I think it's the guitar player, is actually Stephen Trask, the guy who wrote the music and stuff. Which I think you feel that. I really think you feel that in the movie, that like even if they did can some stuff later and, overdub it so you had better quality, I think that all of the intensity of the performances really come through. And that's something to me about Hedwig and the Angry Inch that's very different from other musicals that I'd seen.
Their performances all feel very authentic and in the moment, and it's not like it's a stage thing. It's like they just did it and filmed it.
Right. And I don't always think that the music tells the story in Hedwig like it does in things like, say, Repo, the Genetic Opera. Like, I think the songs help you get more inside of Hedwig's psyche and like learn where they're coming from.
It made me think of Phantom of the Paradise, because that one, it's a musical about people doing music. So the songs don't normally tell you the story, but there might be like metaphors in the song that build on people. And I think Hedwig did the same thing.
Yeah. For this first section here, then we kind of come to where we learn what happens to Hansel. Hansel is, like we said, obsessed with American culture and is sunbathing out one day in some...
I don't want to get into it, but there's a funny thing that they say about like Hansel goes to college and tries to do some weird like philosophical essay about like American culture and music and stuff. And what is it? It's called like you can't always get what you want. But he's sunbathing.
He's sunbathing out in the middle of basically a bombed out building or whatever. And he takes an admirer named Luther.
Or Sugar Daddy.
Yeah, or Sugar
comes to
Daddy. Luther is kind of looking on Hansel and sees something that he likes.
And he's an army sergeant, which
Yeah.
needs to be mentioned.
And kind of lures Hansel with gummy bears.
Gummy bears.
And it's sad because they make the distinction that like the gummy bears there have like no sugar in them and they're bland and just nothing. And then these are like American gummy bears that are just jacked up with sugar, jacked up with flavor.
So Luther basically wants to propose marriage to Hansel and is going to get him out of Germany.
And to America.
But in order to do that, he's going to have to marry them, and they're going to do a full medical exam. But they're not going to let him marry him as a man, obviously, because this is like the 80s and the United States military. So they're not going to let him marry as a man. So they decide that he's going to become a woman. Hansel's mother says, "You can take my name," and her name is Hedwig. But they're going to have to do a sex change operation. And things don't go according to plan. They don't show anything.
No.
You know, oh shit, I just completely glossed over one of my other favorite jokes, though. When Luther looks down and like acknowledges Hansel and he just like rolls over and gives him like full display of his junk and refers to it as his little bishop in a turtleneck. Which in the Blu-ray art, there is a weird like sock puppet bishop in a turtleneck thing. But yeah, Hansel agrees.
There's a thing that Hedwig says to Hansel too that's kind of sad where she tells him to be free, one must give up a part of oneself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is put a pin in that, I think, for like later synthesizing this film.
But yeah, so the operation is botched, and Hedwig instead no longer has a penis and does not have a vagina, but is left with basically a 1-inch mound of flesh. And
the titular angry inch.
Yeah, that is what becomes known as the angry inch.
Which they detail in another very punk-leaning song.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite songs of the thing. At this point, do they go ahead? I forget.
Well, again, the whole time you're bouncing between like their tour performances,
right?
And,
there's a lot back and forth.
and
Like Hedwig is
flashbacks.
telling the story in between her songs and things like that.
Because some stuff that's happened up to this point as well, I think, is that there's a few times where Hedwig wanted to approach Tommy, and they have like a manager that's kind of guiding this tour, and she's trying to like rein it in, doesn't want them to confront one another until the lawsuit goes ahead.
And I think at this point, though, I think we now get the song "Sugar Daddy."
One of my favorites.
There's-
The whole performance is fantastic. I love Hedwig's look in this and everything.
There's two versions of this too. So the Broadway version in 2014, they really changed the whole thing, and it became like a big rock anthem. But I guess it was to kind of try to breathe new life. I've sent you guys the video of that one.
I like the more kind of country version.
It's
in the
funnier.
movie.
Yeah, I think it's funnier. Like they both have their own things, and like
it's almost like rockabilly in a way. It's fun.
the lyrics to Sugar Daddy are so funny. They're so suggestive.
That's the best part with the audience too.
And so Hedwig starts interacting with the audience like very in their face, and no one wants any part of it.
Wearing that fringe skirt and thrusting into his
She
face.
starts walking on tables and making these comments to people like as she's walking. But she comes up to this old man and like squats down and puts her crotch directly in his face, and she's wearing this tasseled skirt, and she starts flipping it on his face.
It's a car wash, ladies and gentlemen.
Car wash, ladies and gentlemen, a car wash.
Which I had a note about that too, because apparently in the stage performance, they had a seat that was the car wash seat. And if you sat there for that part, you would be the person that Hedwig would do that to.
That would explain. There is that scene because in 2014, Neil Patrick Harris took over the role as Hedwig, and in a performance
At the Tonys.
he car washes somebody, and it's somebody famous, like right there.
I've got that here. It's Orlando Bloom.
Okay. Nice. Although his skirt wasn't quite as short as Hedwig's in the movie.
No, God, that scene is just so funny. And It's so intoxicating because the way she's working that room,
Yeah.
like, God, I would kill to have been eating
great.
there.
I would
and
immediately
just-
be a fan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
somebody, like, if this band just started playing, I'd be like, what the fuck is going? Oh my God.
That'd be amazing.
These are amazing.
Because I can't think of how many like little like nowhere bands I've seen before where they just stand there, they have no energy, no charisma.
Yeah.
To then see someone like this perform, like immediately you're like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite, like, performances in the movie was that whole Sugar Daddy
That's a great part.
scene. From there, I think it goes to...
But it's not all sunshine for Hedwig and Luther.
It is not, because it's like on their 1 year anniversary, Luther leaves them, right?
yeah, for
a
basically
younger-
a younger dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're living in Junction City, Kansas, which apparently this is based off of a person in John Cameron Mitchell's life. That was like a babysitter that he had that was also a prostitute.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if he had similar encounters as the character in the movie.
Yeah, I think so. Because there's some
oh my.
yeah.
Oh, you know what? Before we dig into this a little further, we should set up some of the side characters in the band. Notably, there is Yitzhak, played by Miriam Shore.
Yes.
And they're supposed to be married, right?
They are,
I didn't
yeah.
really get that.
In
till
the
I
current
was-
time, they're supposed to be married.
And
There's
that's one criticism I have of the film. I'll go ahead and jump in. You don't really get to know these tertiary characters.
I have a problem with that too, and because also when I tried to research to understand more, there's more in the musical that gives this better context.
Correct,
That
yeah.
they left out of the film.
and apparently there was scenes shot for the movie that were cut out later.
They are all of, there it
That
is.
one.
There it is.
There are deleted scenes on the Blu-ray,
Okay.
which I did not get to go through today.
And that might give more context.
But I don't think it should have to. Like, I agree with you. I think that
well, if it's that important, you don't cut it out.
right, like
Let me throw this out for context, just because it's not in the film, and we will need it for discussion.
Okay.
So, in the musical, Hedwig describes how she agreed to marry Yitzhak, who was a Jewish drag queen from Zagreb, Croatia.
That's a movie unto itself.
Only after extracting a promise from him to never do drag again. And it's suggested that Hedwig is afraid of Yitzhak becoming more feminine and get more attention. And Yitzhak resents Hedwig for this treatment.
See, that doesn't really come across quite that
at all.
much in
No,
the movie.
Piper and I were talking about this after we watched it. That
And when you know that, you're like, oh, it all clicks.
yeah,
It all works. But
it's
you
one
need
of
that
those.
context.
It's one of those Star Wars moments where it's like they explain the Emperor's
Did
return.
you know on Exegol
Yeah.
they
in
were?
the novel, and you're like, how the fuck am I supposed to know that?
I mean, things are inferred, but you don't really quite understand the nature of the relationship.
Like, there's the early scene where it's after a show, and Yitzhak is kind of taking care of Hedwig's wigs, and you see Yitzhak kind of longingly stroking one of them,
Yeah,
and you're like, well, why, though? Like, what's going on right
he puts
now?
it on and everything, and you don't really quite get it.
I wish that was kept in. I don't understand why it wasn't.
I know you got to cut some stuff from time, but it seemed too important to not have.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, and maybe if you haven't watched the film yet and you're listening to our, thing about it, maybe it'll help you like it more. I don't know,
Yeah.
but again, that was an important thing that I think should have been in there. I don't think you have to have it to enjoy it, but I think it really helps.
It made me appreciate it more once I knew that.
Yeah, it's one of the few weaknesses of the movie.
The next scene, though, is another great song of the film.
This is my favorite song, I think.
Really?
Yeah, Wig in a Box.
I love it too. I just wasn't expecting that to be your favorite.
It's the total glam rock over the top thing too.
It is, yeah. It's also extremely. It's probably the most Broadway one too.
Yeah.
That I think is in there.
And it again kind of not directly but indirectly explains that basically to kind of deal with this situation, Hansel develops this Hedwig persona into an actual, like, the character that we have seen so far doing these stage shows.
And it's a great song, and it actually has become an anthem for a lot of people in the LGBTQ community. That basically Hansel is talking about that when he comes home at night, he has to go back to being him, but during the day or during when he's able to be on, per se, he's able to, put on some makeup and throw on the 8-track and pull the wig down from the shelf. And then suddenly I'm Miss Farrah Fawcett from TV. Like he gets to be whoever he wants to be.
Right.
And it's the way it's shot is so fun. And
Yeah.
I would really love to see this in a Broadway performance because I think it'd be
Well, I love it
So
too because
cool.
it starts in the trailer and then it kind of folds down into this elaborate stage.
Yeah, yeah. And the scene that kills me is Hansel singing this song, and all of a sudden the band members show up and they start walking into the trailer, and the drummer has on this like absolutely tiny drum kit.
Yeah, it's like a toy drum
that
kit.
he's
Yeah.
wearing on himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, once the song like really kicks out, Hedwig is wearing a full outfit made of hair. And she's shaking her thing, you know.
It's so much fun.
But I really do love that song, and I love the message of that song too. And I don't think it has to be just a metaphor for people in the LGBTQ community. It's really just for anybody who's struggling with who they are.
Anyone can relate to that idea, I think.
But
Anyone with any amount of self-reflection and awareness, sure.
yeah, but I've always loved that track. I think it's such a good one.
It's a good one.
It's the one I've listened to the most since I watched the film.
There's it's really funny. They added a line in the 2014 where Hedwig addresses the crowd and it's like, "This is my favorite part, where you now get to sing the words that I've written and I get to hear them." It's just
Which is just the song too. It has the sing-along part, doesn't
Yes.
it? Where the words come from the screen.
The
And
little
that's-
bouncing hair.
yeah,
Wig, bouncing wig.
yeah. From there,
Love it. Oh, we've missed a song. We skipped a song too that I think is maybe important.
Which one did we
The
skip?
Origin of Love.
oh god, yeah, I
That's
love that
pretty,
one.
that's kind of the.
We need to back up
the
and talk about
linchpin
that
of
one.
The whole philosophy of the movie, I think.
Yeah, I feel shitty that I missed that one now. I get kind of stuck sometimes because the
The non-linear nature of the movie.
It's
makes
so
it
back and
difficult to
forth.
talk about.
Yeah.
But as Hedwig's telling the audience basically about Hansel's drawings as a child, and that you see then he's trying to make sense of who he is. He's
Yep.
trying to figure out, why do I feel different? Why am I this way? You know. And the song that they end up singing, and it actually just morphs into this big animation segment.
Which are pretty cool looking.
They are
Origin of Love, right? Is the song.
correct.
And all this is inspired from his interest in Plato's Symposium.
Yes. I had a feeling you would bring that up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Dustin?
Well, it's this whole speech by... it's a speech given by Aristophanes about love and how that's the product of one's need to reunite with your other half. And it sets up that basically... originally, people were like kind of these multi-person entities, and as punishment for trying to usurp the gods, they split them in half, so that they wouldn't have the same power that they had had before.
I love that track. It has some of my favorite lyrics about that the gods grew quite scared of our strength and defiance, and Thor said, "I'm going to kill them all with my hammer like I killed the giants."
Yeah. That's good lyrics, yeah, definitely.
It's that one I think is probably the most played. If you were to look for Hedwig, you'll see that one come up
I can understand
more than
that.
any of them.
You know me, I'm more of a fan of the faster tunes.
Yeah, the rockers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But no, like you said, Dustin, this is very much Hedwig's journey in life.
And I
Hansel's
pulled
journey.
the quote that Hedwig kind of tosses in here between the song. It's a little long, but I think it's, again, relevant if we're going to talk about themes later. So it is clear that I must find my other half, but is it a he or she? What does this person look like? Identical to me or somehow complementary? Does my other half have what I don't? Did he get the looks, the luck, the love? Were we really separated forcibly, or did he just run off with the good stuff? Or did I? Will this person embarrass me? What about sex? Is that how we put ourselves back together again? Or can two people actually become one again?
I really like that.
So that just lines along right with that philosophy.
Yes.
And that's where we kind of start to find out about Hansel meeting Tommy. And
So in the wake of Luther running out, she's got to get by somehow.
yeah,
We learned that she was working on the army base, and that's kind of fallen apart too, right, I believe?
you at one point you find out she was given a lot of blowjobs on the
so
army base.
She supplements it with some blowjobs and babysitting
Yeah.
to get by. But she also starts up her
Talk
band.
about adventures and babysitting.
And I love her initial band because
God,
it's
that
just
was
like
so fucking
other army
hilarious.
wives.
The Korean
Yeah.
Korean army wives.
That was pretty cool. That was great.
And man, their first little performance is great.
It's like an ice cream parlor or something like that.
Something
Or-
like that.
Yeah.
And she very much implies that she's given blowjobs to all the dudes that are there watching her.
They're with their wives and they're giving nervous looks.
The scene that kills me is when he introduces the guitar player and she just starts bending one note over and over and over. He's like, okay, so stop.
Which too, when they come in on like they're ending a song and then they're doing like the just like the going crazy, and the guitarist just keeps going and keeps going.
She's very enthusiastic.
That introduces the song "Wicked Little Town," which
That's a
is
good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's very Broadway too, but it's basically written all about Tommy. Really,
And that's when they meet, right?
yeah, she's babysitting Tommy's sibling, and the opening scene we see of Tommy is he's laying in a bathtub jerking it
With the door wide open.
with the door wide open.
As you do.
Yeah. At this point, Hansel's kind of like in between Hansel and Hedwig. Like, he's very much in that he's not sure who he wants to be at that point.
He's kind of just living it up as Hedwig at this point.
Yeah, yeah. But he basically walks in, sets the baby down, steps over the baby, and then gives Tommy a hand job.
There's some great editing here, too. Because you know what's going on without seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
You know?
And then drops her business card.
Yeah. So you find out that Tommy is basically his dad's an army person too.
He's a good Christian boy.
Yeah, very.
He plays guitar during the
Church choirs,
services,
yeah.
But he's very conflicted about like rebellion and basically rebelling against his father and thinking he has some very kind of skewed views.
It says something about him being a D&D player, right?
Yeah.
I mean, did I imagine that? I
Yeah,
thought
it's in there.
Yeah, Hedwig does when she's telling her heads outside of a club.
That's right.
She's getting drunk with her heads and telling them a story of how she met Tommy. And basically that Tommy was just this nerd, D&D loving, Christian boy.
Goody boy.
There's another great line here too, though, where
Those two things never went together very often.
No.
It's kind of confusing.
Tommy wants to talk to her about the Bible, and he kind of brings it up, and she's like, "Oh, do you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know about that, but I'm a fan of his work."
Yeah. That scene is very, I don't know. I kind of related to that scene a little bit more because I think if you grew up in a church atmosphere and you hit your rebellious phase and you start asking questions, you start trying to form your own opinions of things.
They don't like that.
No, they really don't. But like, I don't think that Tommy understood that his opinions of how he was forming things were very negative and hurtful towards other people. And he's basically viewing Eve as someone who was created for Adam, which is honestly led to a whole lot of oppression from a lot of people who still believe that.
But he straight up says like if that's what God did, that sucks.
Yeah, he's acknowledging that it's not right.
Which that took me right back to my things where it's like, oh, if there's the random person on the island and they've never been a Christian and they die, what happens?
Yeah. Well, they're fucked, Dustin.
Yeah.
They're just fucked.
Because you didn't go over there and tell them about Jesus Christ.
Not a satisfactory answer.
You should have.
So yeah, that kind of got me a little bit because I related to his struggle there to parse all that out.
Well, their relationship starts getting more involved. Hedwig starts to teach Tommy, like help him with guitar.
All the great bands.
Show him, like giving him basically a rock history lesson of people he should be listening to. And she's already mentioned earlier about bands like Lou Reed, David Bowie, Iggy Pop, all the people that you see just Hedwig wearing on her sleeve, pretty much. But as their relationship...
I'm surprised Alice didn't get a mention there.
It was a little... Yeah.
But that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah. As their relationship kind of starts to get more involved, though, like you can definitely tell that they're very interested in each other more than...
Hedwig's immediately smitten with Tommy.
Yeah. And Tommy's kind of growing towards Hedwig, but you can tell the whole time that it's not like it's a very strange growing towards Hedwig. Like Tommy doesn't understand what he wants. He's just young and dumb kind of a thing.
And they start playing gigs and stuff around town. And I think one of the lines is they start outgrossing monster trucks in Wichita.
Yeah. Yeah, they start playing together. Tommy is playing all the songs that, him and Hedwig are riding
And
together.
that's when she gives him the guitar
Yeah.
Right.
that has Gnosis on it.
Yeah, she says this is going to be your stage name.
Yeah, it's Greek for knowledge.
and later she ends up basically giving him his image.
Yeah, the look with like the silver cross on the forehead.
Yeah, super David Bowie. But at this point is when Tommy kind of comes on to Hedwig, and they start, making out and everything, and they think that...
It's an interesting scene because it implies they've done this a bit before, and he always avoids her front side.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, he knows about what's going on with Hedwig, but you can tell like on some layer it's sitting weird with him.
Right. And so they, like, kind of in the heat of the moment, Hedwig is basically like, whatever you want to do, let's like, I want to be with you. Let's do this. And Tommy reaches down in Hedwig's pants and feels the angry inch, I guess, and jerks away. And that scene is so rough.
He is so good, John Cameron Mitchell, in this scene in particular. I mean, he's just transcendent, really, in this performance. And he says it's what I got to work with, because, Tommy's like, what is that?
Yeah.
And it's just, everything's just, you just see her breaking.
That's a rough scene to watch. I think it's really gut-wrenching just because that's what Hedwig and Hansel were afraid of forever. Like, that's what it will come to. No one will ever accept me for what I am. I don't know what I am.
And this doesn't just apply to like transgender people either. It applies to anyone. No matter what, however your body looks, whoever you are.
Right.
It's a metaphor for that.
And in this situation, it's just what the character has, But like, I don't know. I think you would be lying to yourself if you didn't feel a bit of that in some part of your life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
You lack total self-awareness if you haven't.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of people who would absolutely say that.
Oh, I know.
It's never something that would happen to them.
That's part of the problem.
But the part that kills me about that whole scene, though, is just Tommy running off. And it's just Tommy trying to say, I love you. And Hedwig's like, well, I wish you'd love the front of me.
Yeah.
That's just, it's a rough scene.
So he leaves and goes become a big famous rock star with all the songs they wrote together.
Yeah. And this is, I think, when you see Hansel fully embrace Hedwig.
Yep.
Hedwig is full persona all the time, because even when Hedwig is not in the full makeup, like for performance, that like personality stays. And so you see it in all the interactions with the band members and the way Hedwig, I can never pronounce his wife's name.
Yitzhak?
Yeah. The way Hedwig treats Yitzhak.
She's kind of harsh to everybody.
Yeah. It's just she's put up this wall of no one gets in anymore.
She's shitty to Yitzhak, she's shitty to the band, shitty to the manager.
Yitzhak decides to audition for a part in Rent.
Right, it's a funny scene because they're in like a laundromat.
Yeah, and there's the flyer there.
And he just keeps looking at it.
And there's a hilarious line in the laundromat too, because even the band members are doing Hedwig's laundry.
Yeah.
And the bass player is holding a bra and he's looking at it really
put that in the dryer.
You do not put a bra in the dryer.
It warps.
Tiffany watched this with me, and at that part she was like, well, that is right.
I've learned that. I learned it the hard way.
That scene just cracks me up. It's so funny. And the fact that it tells
I felt for that dude at that moment.
It's even more telling about Hedwig as a character too, that the bandmates are doing her laundry, like she's not even gonna do her own laundry.
But you can tell they're getting tired of Hedwig's shit.
Yeah.
Because you can only take so much.
Yeah, that follows the typical pattern of any kind of rock star, biopic in parentheses.
Unless you're watching the Weird Al movie.
No, I haven't watched that yet, so I can't say.
This was the perfect episode to bring that one up on.
Yeah. At this point we end up in Manhattan, which is because Tommy is playing Madison Square Garden, and we're now in Manhattan. This is when Yitzhak busts into the room, and the manager has gotten them this like tiny little shoebox
Because
of
New
a
York's
room.
so expensive.
Yeah.
And,
she bet she could say ordered a pizza.
Yeah.
They don't have money for a pizza. This is New York.
There's like 6 people crammed in this room. Yitzhak comes in and says that he got the part.
Yep. He's going to Guam.
But Hedwig pulls out his passport.
Yeah.
This is a rough scene too, because
harsh.
Hedwig is cruel to Yitzhak.
It's just cruel. It's just cruelty.
And Yitzhak is just broken. I realized I was like, I'm stuck. I can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I can never be who I want to be because you won't let me.
And this is the moment where like you get it and it works, but I think if you had that extra context,
it needed more to support it. But I mean, when she tears up the passport, it's still pretty affecting.
Yeah.
You know? And even the manager's like, well, I've had it. We're out of here. Screw this.
So now we get to the Bilgewater Madison Square Garden performance.
well, don't we have like the
no,
fallout with Tommy happens, right?
Yeah. Because they're hanging out nearby. Well, Tommy ends up.
Well, what it is, the band's left her, the manager's left her, she has no one, and the only option is to go work the street again.
Yeah.
So,
and
Hedwig's just out there like in a little like alleyway of a street trying to find a guy, and then a limo rolls up.
yeah,
And it's Tommy.
And it's Tommy.
they end up talking, drinking together. Start to
Those feelings are still there.
yeah, and Tommy's really trying to like be Tommy, like completely not accepting what he did to this human being, but trying to still, I don't know, trying to make it happen, make it work.
It looks like they're going to get back together.
Yeah.
And Hedwig's driving the limo and they're drinking.
They're listening to Origin of Love.
Oh, yeah. And she gets pissed because he changed the lyric. No, he didn't understand
He didn't understand the lyric, yeah.
That's right.
Because he refers to Osiris as
Cyrus.
And he's like, Cyrus. And he's like, well, there were two versions of the song. And Hed's just like, no, you just fucked it up.
Cyrus is the god, yeah. That's hilarious. And then they get in a wreck.
Yeah. They end up getting taken to the hospital, and then the tabloids pick up on Tommy Gnosis with I think they refer to him as a transvestite hooker.
Yeah. And of course he's saying, oh, I don't even know her. I didn't know it was a he and all this crap.
Yeah,
But that spoils the story, and everyone learns the truth.
Yeah, completely throws Hedwig under the bus. Literally, I mean, they ran
He's
into the
an
bus.
asshole. I don't like Tommy.
So now at the Madison Square Garden Bilgewater gig, that's where Hedwig is like addressing the crowd with. Hedwig has PowerPoints at like all of the
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty great, but she's flashing PowerPoints of the incident,
Yeah.
on the screen, and basically saying like that I know that the only reason some of you are even here is because of this.
And it's basically that after exposing all of this, Hedwig did finally get to become famous. Things were kind of righted as far as like who wrote the songs and whatnot. There's a cool segment where they show her she's on the Rosie O'Donnell show.
Yeah, that was a real segment.
Yeah, that was from them promoting the actual musical. And the album that's there was like the first album they made of the songs for the musical.
That's cool.
And they just like slotted that in.
I don't really have anything nice to say about Rosie O'Donnell because I just don't like her. But that performance, the network would not let them do it.
Yeah, she fought for him.
And she was
you
like,
gotta respect that.
yeah, you do. I have nothing but respect for that. She said, no, you have to do it. They just weren't going to let him perform as Hedwig. Like, and apparently Letterman did the same thing.
Yeah.
So shitty, but what are you going to do?
It's another thing about how this was made, when it was made, it was so groundbreaking. It's so ahead of its time.
It really is, yeah. I think that this could be made now differently, but people would be like, oh, now
It
people
would
would
get
be
more
like,
of a reception.
and now people would be like, wow, it's so groundbreaking.
Yeah.
This was
20 years ago.
Yeah. But the performance pretty much completely falls apart. Hedwig is really grappling with who she is and her relationship with Tommy. And it becomes this really interesting scene where she ends up like ripping off her wig, ripping off all her clothes.
Kind of strips back down to Hansel.
Yeah,
It gets almost ethereal and surreal.
Okay, I'm going to be
at
honest
the
with you
end.
guys. The final act of this film, I did not care a lot for.
I agree. It kind of lost me too.
it gets too. I like it, but I can definitely see your point, and I will agree to some extent because it gets. Sometimes I think it leaves too much to your interpretation of what you're trying to figure out is happening. I think it helps because if you read some of the story, like you realize what's happening, but I don't think it was portrayed well enough. Part of that, I will say, I think is just inexperienced director.
Right.
It could be, yeah. I mean, I think they're trying to say something profound, but not really getting it across.
I didn't think it... I know what was happening. So, like, when Hedwig strips down and she's now back to Hansel, and Hansel is watching a performance of Origin of Love
By Tommy singing to Hedwig.
And I understand that what you're basically seeing is you're looking at Hansel seeing his other half that he wants to be. Mm-hmm. The half that's putting back together. Mm-hmm. But there's no way to make that happen.
I think like it's supposed to be a lot of this finale is internal, like it's within Hedwig's mind that's going on. But it's just the way I guess it's presented. It's hard to make that jump with the film as it plays.
Right. It's very incongruous to the rest of the movie.
That's a perfect... I was about to say that it doesn't feel in line with the rest of the way the rest of the film feels.
Because then the next thing is notably after this, Hedwig kind of has a change of heart and turns the wig over to Yitzhak.
Yeah.
And lets Yitzhak finally embrace drag again. Mm-hmm. And we see him all glammed up. Which I think it's for true of the musical and true of the film. They always cast a woman in this role, right? Because then that makes the flip of that at the end.
How do you pronounce the...
Miriam Shore, right?
She's in one of my wife's shows that she watches, like the...
One of my wives' shows?
You know what I'm talking about.
Is it one of the drunk rich women yelling at each other shows?
No, she doesn't watch those.
Okay,
this one was called Younger, I think, or something. I don't know.
It is a great performance, though, because I think if I didn't know any of the context coming in, I would think it was a dude from the start. With this, the portrayal of Yitzhak.
The actress that plays Yitzhak in the 2014, her name's Lana Hall, and she's great. Like, that is one thing I will say. I don't think anyone will ever replace John Cameron Mitchell in this cast, but Neil Patrick Harris and Lana Hall are pretty fucking fun to watch. If you've seen the stuff, I mean, it's fun, but I don't think they have the heart that John Cameron Mitchell does.
Yeah.
Right.
But then we get to see Yitzhak take center stage and kind of take over the song and finally have that moment to be the star.
Mm-hmm. And Hansel like wakes up naked in an alley at night.
Yeah, there's...
It's another weird transition.
Yeah, right.
Well, he's stripped down now.
And he kind of wanders out.
And the band is now in like all white. And it's like basically a transition from the band being the band you've seen the whole movie. And now they're this kind of like picture perfect band. And Hansel is Tommy Gnosis, basically. Has the same outfit,
has the cross on the
cross
forehead.
on his head.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's a lot to infer. But that's unfortunately...
Yeah, it kind of becomes a Terry Gilliam movie at the end.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, okay, what just happened? But yeah, the final scene of the film is Hansel waking up naked in an alley and just wandering out into the street. I kind of like that scene, though, because I think what it is...
And it's a striking visual.
It's a cool scene.
And I think, like, thematically, it's Hansel finally just accepting, like, fuck it. This is what I am.
Right. Strip all the armor off, all of the persona.
This is who I am. I'm just, like, this is what I got. It's what I got to work with.
That's what I got to work with.
But yeah, that is the end of the film.
The denouement of the movie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Can you say that in English?
The ending.
All right, thanks.
I guess before we get deep into thoughts about the film, I have all kinds of neat notes about things.
Okay.
I'm going to rattle off a lot of these.
Do it.
So Yitzhak has a Rent sweatshirt at one point, and then of course it's the whole subplot of wanting to leave the band to go be in Rent. In real life, John Cameron Mitchell was offered a role in Rent, but turned it down to do Hedwig.
He's better than Rent. He made the right decision.
That's a funny connection.
It has moments.
Let's see. But we hit a lot of these along the way, which is pretty cool.
Well, and I was really interested in when I was looking up John Cameron Mitchell to see what all he'd done before Hedwig. Nothing.
I'm upset he's not related to Cameron Mitchell. I was hoping he was his son or something. I was like, give me a Cameron Mitchell reference. Come on.
But like he hadn't done much. He'd done like some smaller Broadway parts on and off Broadway and like some smaller things, but like
he should have gotten an Oscar for this. He really should have. He got a Golden Globe nomination, didn't win. But I mean, not even an Oscar nomination, which...
But
today he would get it. Today he would get that.
Could you imagine Oscar. 20 years ago, though? Like
right,
this,
they never would have...
I mean, even 20 years ago, this had a cult following. Yeah. Like, it's not it was not what you would call successful.
Yeah,
But the play
it cost $6 million to make and made $3.6 million at the box office. And it's kind of cool it was released by New Line, because that was back when they were still more or less an independent studio.
Weinstein
They
was
took
probably
chances.
attracted to Hedwig.
Oh no. So the montage where Hedwig is teaching Tommy, one of the scenes, Tommy has a Hotel Riverview t-shirt. So Hotel Riverview was the original home of the stage show.
Oh,
And it was there for several years. So that's like just a funny callback to the whole production of the musical and everything. John Cameron Mitchell had to wear so much makeup for a lot of the shoots that when they would go on their lunch break for the day, he would have to go back to his trailer and then shave off his 5 o'clock shadow.
I was reading that. Yeah.
It would poke through the makeup.
yeah.
And he would have to touch it up and then go back and then touch up the makeup.
And the makeup was amazing. There's some great makeup and costumes in this movie.
There's a really fun scene too where Hedwig is performing, and Tommy is watching in the background. She wipes her face and she puts her face on a rag and tosses it, and it's the impression.
It's like a perfect impression of her
I
makeup.
love that.
It's great.
Let's see. There's a scene, again, I think it's with Tommy maybe, but they see a woman across the way, and she's singing Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You. So the person playing that is Maggie Moore, and after Miriam Shore left the role of Yitzhak, Maggie Moore took it over.
That's funny.
So that's just a funny internal connection.
There's a funny line about that song, in that when he's singing, like, do you hear what she's singing? But something like, does the love end? And she's like,
the song
end? She's been singing on a loop for 3 days.
That's a horrible song.
So the Bilgewaters they perform at, you said it was like a Red Lobster thing. It was just spot on. A lot of the decorations and like pictures hanging up have to do with the sinking of the Lusitania. So the original off-Broadway production was staged in a ballroom of a hotel that acted as a shelter for the surviving crew of the Titanic in 1912. So again, just weird, just out there internal connections.
Interesting.
The date in the paper for when Hedwig and Tommy get arrested for the accident is 8/13/01. That's exactly 40 years after the Berlin Wall was erected.
Oh, that's fun. That could be construed as that also the time that Hedwig's wall came down.
So there's again metaphorical connection. What else? I put this one in just because I'm a music guy, and I know you are too, Michael. On their like drum set for the band, the Hedwig logo is a riff of the Ludwig company that makes drums.
It's like exactly the same font and everything. If you weren't paying attention, it would look like a Ludwig drum kit.
Two more little fun connections. So we talked about missing stuff. There are a few songs that aren't included. One that's really popular is Random Number Generation, and that is in a scene, but it's whenever Hedwig walks in on Yitzhak wearing the wig.
Right.
And it's playing on the television. You just hear it for a little bit. And then last thing I've got that I thought was interesting, the person that did the makeup for Hedwig was Mike Potter, and they've got a role in the film. They're in one little scene, and it's when Tommy picks up Hedwig. Mike Potter is playing the other person in drag that's out on the street.
Okay. That's funny.
Pretty funny.
Nice.
Lots of little internal connections.
All right, so do you want to break down what you thought of it?
Yeah, let's get into this.
Do it.
Well, I won't go first since it was mine, so you already
I'll go first.
know
All
a
right,
lot of
Jason
what I
goes
thought of it.
first.
Yeah, I think it's an impressive movie, especially for the time it was released. I think it was very brave. The performance is very brave and very good.
Yeah.
And very raw and honest.
I don't think we brought this up, and we probably should. We're like three straight white dudes in a basement.
Yeah, we don't.
We're not the right people to like analyze some aspects of this film.
No.
But we vibe to it,
Right.
and we care about that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. And even just talking about just basic filmmaking, it's very well done and very impressive. I mean, I think it was his directorial debut.
Yeah.
And that's impressive. Also starring it at the same time and singing it.
yeah,
Damn. Talented. Very fucking talented.
Yeah.
I mean, he carries the movie. I mean, it is John Cameron Mitchell's movie.
Oh,
It really
absolutely,
is.
yeah.
and it wouldn't work without.
No. I mean, yeah, we already mentioned all the great things, really. I mean, the music's great, the direction's great, the editing's great. It's constructed very well, put together well. Then my only real complaints were the fact that some of the tertiary characters, or even secondary characters, who just don't really know who they are or the dynamics of their relationships. And that kind of interferes with enjoying it more. And the ending is kind of okay.
It's strange.
Yeah, it doesn't really jive with the rest of it for me.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it is very grounded, very like band documentary.
Yeah, I mean, it has its flares and it's,
I think in my head, I can justify that ending. Like, I can talk myself. I mean, I like to think
it doesn't ruin the movie.
You can convince yourself that it's a metaphor to Fenrir, the wolf god.
But I mean, like, I like to think that we're all three intelligent people, and we can.
I'd like to think that too, Michael, but it just isn't true.
Yeah. But like, we can watch that ending, and we can infer things, and we can connect the dots, and know what is trying to be said. Mm-hmm. But it's not always. It just, like you said earlier, it just doesn't feel like the rest of the film.
Sometimes it's not as satisfying either. Mm-hmm. But I mean, end of the day, I think it's a really great movie. I would give it 4 stars.
Oh wow!
Oh, okay.
It's high praise from you.
Yeah,
Wow.
And a lot of it has to do with when it was made. I mean, it's very impressive that this movie even got made at all.
Yeah.
Apparently
he was approached by some people to make a movie of it while doing the show. Which even then is strange because there wasn't a lot of that. Mm-hmm. You know, like there was a lot of shows being put on in the 80s and early 90s that never made it to film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, so like what is it about...
Especially with this subject matter that a lot of people just were not ready for.
Yeah.
Still aren't, sadly.
And then for them to see the potential in it, to want to make it a film.
We didn't address it, but there is a sequence where like it sounds like everybody's kind of okay with the subject matter that's happening, but there is a sequence when Hedwig is playing the song Angry Inch. Mm-hmm. And it's a graphic song basically about the sex change operation getting botched.
It's easily the most punk rock song.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a killer song.
Love it.
But there is a guy who finally just has enough and stands up and yells, you're a faggot. Mm-hmm. And but it's also a great scene because Yitzhak like jumps off the stage and just starts fucking beating the shit out of him. And then the entire Bilgewater
it's a huge fight
gets into a fight. But yeah, like people were not okay with it. Mm-hmm. Like
even today, a lot of people just no. I mean, they wouldn't watch this movie. They wouldn't get it. It would irritate them. It would anger them.
I think people would want to say that they'd be okay with it because they can sit at home and watch RuPaul's Drag Race and think, like it's some joke or whatever. But when it's somebody's life, it's not a fucking joke.
Right.
And I think they would instantly be uncomfortable and not okay with the subject matter.
Yeah, because it's like punk rock. I mean, it's in your face. It's aggressive. It's honest.
20 years ago, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. So that's my thought. How about you, Dustin?
Okay, I'll go next. I think if I rated this film just on the music and the musical performances, it would be like a hard 5, the hardest 5 you can give. I love punk rock. I love glam rock. It's totally my jam, totally my vibe. I think every song is just masterfully done, well composed, well executed, sounds great. I've been jamming to the soundtrack since I watched the film.
Nice.
To get ready for this. But again, I do think there's some flaws there as a film if I'm talking about it as a movie, and it's more than just those songs. Jason, you've already well covered the like gaps in there. I'm right there with you on that. I think it wouldn't even had to have been maybe more than like 15 minutes added in. Yeah. They could have fleshed it out enough to kind of pass a lot of that. And to me, this is just like a tasting more. I do think the ending's really weak. It goes in a neat idea, but I don't think it meshes with everything else that comes before it.
Right.
And when I think about musicals and what I like about them, all my most favorite ones, they really like go hard. They have this big explosive finale. You think of like Rocky Horror, right? You have the stage show that he puts them in, and it's like 3 songs back to back that just amp up and amp up. Little Shop of Horrors, you get the confrontation with Audrey 2, which is like one of the best songs in the thing. And then if you've got like the version that goes for the full thing, then you have giant Audreys attacking the city as the final song.
Grease, you get a flying car.
Right. The ones that I just deeply love and really care about a lot, they always go big and crazy. Like Repo, you've got that's when the actual opera happens.
Yeah.
And here it kind of just like, it was like they were burning that torch and then suddenly they just snuffed it out for like a more subdued ending, which is cool. But it wasn't what I was personally hoping for, which I respect what they did, but I think theme-wise, there's a little weirdness that struck me, and I don't know how much I want to go into this, but so like a core of this, they don't delve on it too much, is that like Hansel is sexually abused. First by his father, and then even though he's an adult, everything with Luther, that's very meant to be like sort of this pedophilic vibe of like an older person taking advantage of a younger person.
Well, we don't actually know how old he is when Luther...
We know he's out of college.
Oh, okay.
Because he talks about giving the paper and that it wasn't received well.
That's right.
And he says, after that, my college career was over. But yeah, they wanted to have that vibe. And so, like a lot of cycles of abuse, if you get into this and look at like the numbers of how this stuff works, very often there is a chance where like if they don't ever get any help, the abused can become the abuser. And I think we see that in Hedwig later because Tommy's just 17 when they meet. And there is a bit of weird like grooming that goes on there.
They even use the word grooming. I was like, ooh, no. I don't think today you would say that.
Yeah. That's definitely taken on more meaning in our modern times than it had in 2001. And so in a way, Hedwig kind of does these same things to Tommy to some degree. And I don't think that ever gets addressed in the film because it is all from Hedwig's perspective. So that's part of it. I think sometimes it's hard to see your own flaws yourself when you're in the thick of things.
That's a pretty good point.
And again, where the ending is like weak to me, I think that that's what I wanted. I wanted there to be like some self-acknowledgement or some self-realization there. Because I do think like the core theme of the film, and it was all couched in that quote and the whole like Plato thing and that song Origin of Love, is it's about self-acceptance and understanding yourself and being comfortable with yourself. Which is cool and it's great, and I'm happy that happens for Hansel by the end of the film. But then I think, too, there's, like, some bad shit that he did that never really gets addressed or tackled, or... Like, he does give the wig to Yitzhak, but there's never that, like, I guess self-realization of, like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I've been treating this person like shit, yeah.
I never viewed... I mean, personally, I never viewed Hedwig as, like, a great... like good character.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't say that as like not a good character.
It's a
like,
flawed character.
It's a very, very flawed character.
Complicated real characters have flaws.
I think that's why I want to punctuate my point is that the film is only from Hedwig's perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're kind of locked into what we can see and understand.
You want to be, I do think that kind of poses an interesting question though of how often when you look at someone else's tragedy in their life, you start to like explain away or like kind of brush away like, oh, well, they're really shitty.
Yeah.
Like, and you start to be like, well, they're only shitty because of this. But then at what point do you own up to your own, you know?
Or I think about sometimes when people die and it's like, you knew like, oh, well, they drank all their life. Of course.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, you want to, there's like the sympathy that you want to feel for them, but you also have to acknowledge the reality. But yeah, and I don't think Hansel was there yet.
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't think by the end of the film, I don't think he was there yet.
So just weird side reading on the film that kind of stuck with me afterwards. So all that said, if I blend all that together, I'm at a solid 3 on this film. I think it's great. Love it. I love the music kind of more than how the film shook out, but it is one I would definitely go back to and enjoy again in the future.
Cool. Interesting. I thought you would like it more than me. Strange.
Well, I surprisingly am not at a 5 on this one.
That's fine.
Don't have to be.
I sit at a solid 4.5.
Okay.
I really like this movie. I like the story a lot. I love to revisit it. I mean, I listen to the music regularly. You know, even when not just talking about doing this for the podcast.
Yeah, it's
like,
a great soundtrack.
I had listened to it a lot before. I think The Origin of Love is one of my favorites, you know, like of the thing, and I've listened to it a shit ton. But yeah, I have a lot of the same hang-ups as you. I don't want to say that the ending is wrong, because I don't think it's wrong. I think it's definitely from John Cameron Mitchell's point of view and how he wanted to end the film. It's not how I wanted to see the film end, but it's how he did it. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's his movie, his art. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it.
Yeah.
But I like what this film has done for culture in general. I like the following that it's picked up. I think that if more people were to watch this film, I think it might help you be a little more tolerant and understanding of some of the things that people go through. We haven't really touched on it, but we talked about it before the podcast started, is that there's a lot of people who try to put their own things on this film. And a lot of people call this a transgender film, and it is very specifically not.
I think we have like quote from Mitchell talking about the character, right?
Right. John Cameron Mitchell
We're quoting an authority on this.
Yeah.
Because we are not authorities on this.
specifically said that while he wanted Hedwig to be a queer voice in the queer community, that Hedwig was never transgender because Hedwig was mutilated. Like, Hedwig did not make that choice. Hansel did not make that choice to become Hedwig as an identity issue.
It wasn't something that he felt like he needed, that he was.
And really, even the Hedwig persona exists in the wake of that to try to salvage the situation.
Right. So I think that I love that this movie still 20 years later makes me ask questions and makes me think.
It's still super relevant.
Yeah. And I love that it still makes me think about like somebody's life that's very different from mine. And it starts to make you like, even talking with Piper about it after we watched it, after reading that Mitchell quote, and I'm like, this is confusing for me. But then I'm like, well, how fucking confusing does it have to be for the person who's living it?
Yeah, right.
Like it just gives you a slight little step into a world that's not your own, that you can kind of understand what somebody's going through.
Yeah.
And I think still, like, regardless of your background or your situation or where you are, like, the core themes of the film, again, like I said, like self-acceptance.
Yeah.
You can vibe to that no matter who you are.
You have to see something of yourself in it. Maybe you're not Hedwig. Maybe you're Yitzhak.
Right.
Like, I think that there's so much to see about yourself in this film.
Or even maybe you're Tommy and you're a confused person that means well, that stumbles along and kind of has to come to terms with what you've done.
Yep.
It's it's a 4.5 for me. The little hangups do keep it from being a perfect film. But yeah, I've always loved it. I do hope that maybe our episode will get some more people to watch it.
Oh, I think if you dig musicals at all, especially like more cult ones like Rocky Horror and stuff, like you need to see this one.
Yeah, it's no 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, but it's pretty good.
Piper told me specifically, she's like, don't compare it to Rocky Horror. And I was like, well, I'm not going to compare it because they're not the same, but it's hard to
I think they go hand in hand, though. If you like one, you're going to like the other.
But it's hard to not talk about like a rock musical without talking about Rocky Horror. It's kind of, you have to. Yeah. So, but I've enjoyed showing it to you guys. I'm glad that you got enjoyment out of it.
Tiffany really liked it too.
Oh, cool. I was wondering what she thought of it.
She at first was like, "Oh, fucking musical block. I'm not doing any of these." And then she watched maybe just the first song, and then she kind of just hunkered down for the rest.
Because Hedwig is such an entertainer. That it's hard to not watch her.
Plus, it's couched in performances. It's not just people randomly breaking into song for no real reason. So it's easier for people who may not like a musical to kind of dig it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's not.
It's not Les Mis or something like that,
Which, I mean, I do love Les Mis.
I like it. It's good.
Hedwig is infectious, and it's hard to turn away. I think once you watch it a little bit.
Well, I had the blue. How'd you guys watch it?
I rented it on Amazon.
Okay,
$3 on Amazon, not too bad.
Yeah,
okay.
We'll probably buy the blue.
Cool. All right, so I think it's Jason, your turn next, right?
Yes.
What are you bringing for us?
God, I've struggled so much with this. You don't even know. This is the hardest decision. I already blew my wad on 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T. Right?
Just because we're doing this now, it doesn't mean we won't do more musicals in the future.
Yeah, I know. No, it's not that.
So
it's
no
just
pressure.
Because there's one I really want to do because I like it. But I'm afraid you guys won't. And nobody else will.
We don't care, man.
I'll be the only person.
I mean,
listen, after 13B, you can't.
Oh, Jesus Christ. See, that's just it. I'm so scared. I'm so gun shy now.
Don't be scared.
You picked 13B and Brimstone, so what are you going to do?
Brimstone is awesome. I will stand by Brimstone. I will stand by that movie.
I think Groucho's with you on that, so.
Damn right. Groucho is cool. You guys suck. Okay, so I had it narrowed down to 3.
Oh, my God.
2 are kind of obvious, but one I really want to talk about. And it's actually something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But then there's one I really want to do, but I don't know if it...
He's like live.
I really am. Because one's more of a... They're both musicals, but one is so... Fuck it, we're going to do Phantom of the Paradise. I want to
Okay.
talk about Phantom of the Paradise.
There
I've never
really
seen
is a phantom.
I think there's people out there who have not seen Phantom of the Paradise, and they need to.
You showed me the trailer, and I was like, "What the fuck? How have I not seen this movie?"
You need this movie.
I'm just going to say fuck yes.
Yeah, all right. I know Dustin will like
well,
this.
what was your other one?
Another one I thought about doing was Repo,
Okay, yeah.
which I really like, but
Yeah.
I think it's also pretty well known.
More
for the
than
most
Phantom of the
part.
Paradise, I
Yeah.
would say.
The other one that I'm not going to say the other one. I'm going to save it for later in case we come back to this.
Keep that in your back pocket.
Yeah,
I mean, I mentioned Repo in the episode too, so
you did. But
Yeah.
I'm not going with that one.
well, that's fine.
I'm going Phantom of the Paradise, which you can rent. I don't see it playing anywhere for free, but you can rent it anywhere for like $4.
star.
I've got the blue.
He's got the blue. So go over to Dustin's and watch it, everybody. But it's
Come on down.
It's a Brian De Palma film from 1974. And if that doesn't interest you immediately, then there's something wrong with you.
I'm pretty excited to watch it because from the first time you showed me that trailer, I was like, "Oh shit, this
Yeah.
movie looks fucking batshit," and I need to
It's
see
great.
it.
It's got one of the coolest costumes ever in any movie.
All right, well, that wraps it up for our first musical episode.
Yo.
We got Jason's coming up next. I don't want to say tweet us because man, that's a fucking shit show right
Fuck
now.
Elon Musk. Fuck him.
So like,
Only talk to us if you have the blue check mark that you've paid money for.
yeah.
Jesus Christ.
However, we're still there.
We're on all the socials that matter, and we have an email.
So however you choose to interact with us is fine. Like
We will reply wherever you are.
yeah.
Just don't pay any more money to do it.
Yeah, please fucking Christ. Don't. And if you get a...
I'm thinking we need a P.O. box so people can literally write us a fucking letter. I would love that.
If you get a tweet from an unverified genre exposure wannabe that's asking you to wire money, actually, that could actually still be us.
that might be us.
Yeah,
pretty
Just know
desperate.
we will not have the blue check mark. We don't have it now. We won't have it ever.
No.
So.
yeah, I ain't paying for that shit.
Fuck that.
They rubber ain't lubricated. Paying for these.
Wow, okay.
But no, as always, we absolutely love your comments. We love when you watch along with us and give us your thoughts. Please keep sending us recommendations for movies for the listener block.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just got a whole batch of them.
Nice.
Woo!
I'm gonna dig into that bag soon.
Where did you where did they come from?
A random conversation on Facebook. I was talking about movies with a person, and then I was like, hey, give me a movie to put on my list for our show. And then they gave me like 5.
Right on.
Cool. Well, send them in because
We want them.
yeah, if we get too low, then we just have to like start picking ones we're not in the mood for right then. And I don't want to do that. So I end up with a Jason
Yeah.
pick.
Hey. No more blind watches.
We'll end up with 13B2.
Fear has a new phone number.
I'm just getting rid of my phone. No,
can't.
no, you can't do that.
can't do that.
No.
Well, yeah. Write us, tweet us, whatever you want to do. However you want to talk to us. We love talking to you, and we love knowing that we're giving you some entertainment of some sort.
As small as it may be.
Hey, the world's kind of shitty right now, so
Yeah.
get your kicks where you
Take
can.
what you can.
Exactly.
Until next time, though, you have been listening to Genre Exposure.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.